Indy 500 coverage is brought to you by the members of the DL 500 Club. Click the link in the description, join today, and get exclusive content.
I mean, what else can you say? Amazing day, amazing drama. You know, obviously we can get into the ticky-tack stuff, and we will. We'll talk about a few of the, still oddities of Indy 500 qualifying. But why would you ever want to change this? Like, fundamentally, why would you ever want to change this idea of cars going super, super fast, unpredictability, the fact that you can have Indy 500 champions and race winners in a potential spot where they are going to get knocked out of the field. You have runs like Rinus VK getting into the wall earlier and then somehow managing to not only get into the field but get into the Fast 12 shootout. You have great stories like small teams like Ryan Hunter-Reay getting into the Fast 12. Team Penske is clearly standing on business right now. So there's so many things that are so good about the Indianapolis 500. It's still got the magic. The magic is still here, and that's probably the highest compliment I can give to today. So obviously we've got a lot of things to talk about. But one of the biggest stories, I think, and something that I want to say right up front, is I want to thank Chevy and Honda. The two manufacturers here, this is what, the 12th or 13th year of this engine formula, and they are still willing to put it all on the line to the point where they not only walk up to the line, but go over it. We've seen engine failures. We've seen plenty of events, which we'll explain here a little bit as best I can. We'll actually have Chevy's Jim Campbell explain it better, but you have all of these unpredictable elements, and I think one of the big things that IndyCar racing really lacks in right now, and it's really not even the fault of like Chevy or Honda, but I think we don't talk about or think about the mechanical side of the race car. The race car is not a football, okay? It never has been, never will be, certainly not at this place, which was built, to test automobiles for the growing automobile industry, right? Like, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway should be a proving ground, always. And the fact that Chevy and Honda are willing to go out there and absolutely send motors and have issues to try to gain that little bit of an edge, that makes it exciting. That's what sets our sport apart. And again, thanks to them for actually doing what, adding to the show, I guess we'll say. But yeah, Chevy was the huge story today. I mean, obviously there were a couple of engine changes from the Honda side today. Scott Dixon and Graham Rahal both really didn't find speed after their engine changes either, but I'm sure that was precautionary in case that the engine did blow. But looking ahead to the race, that's obviously a huge thing. The Chevy issues today started with Kyle Larson, a plenum event, which, if you'll remember back to our coverage of St. Petersburg 2 years ago, Pato O'Ward lost that race to Marcus Ericsson because he had a plenum event, which is essentially, in the most layman's terms that I can, because I'm the biggest layman in the world, fuel gets into the plenum on the engine, and then a spark or something will ignite that. Most of the times it's a gear shift, and we saw that quite a bit today as teams as drivers were kind of downshifting to get more speed. Kyle Larson, it happened on his last lap. It happened to Christian Rasmussen. The most kind of gut-wrenching one was Augustine Canapino, who looked like Rick Mears. An unbelievable qualifying run. 2 laps over 233 miles an hour, equaling the best runs of Team Penske and Arrow McLaren earlier today. And that run was taken away from him, and he'll start deep in the field. But here's a clip from the post-practice or post-qualifying press conference today of Jim Campbell and the statement that he gave to the media on what exactly went wrong and what Chevy is going to be doing over the next 24 hours to try to fix the issue.
First of all, it's always great to be at Indianapolis. This is what we look forward to all year long. We're here at Indy for qualifying. It's one of the most special weekends of the year in terms of all motorsports. One of the toughest as well. And as a manufacturer, I will tell you, we are pushing as hard as we can to give our drivers and teams the most horsepower and performance that we can possibly give them, because that's what you do at Indy. So we're pressing hard, and you can see, obviously we're using the Indy 500 spec at 1.5 bar. There's been no testing at 1.5 bar with the exception of some time on Friday. No testing prior to that at 1.5 bar. So this is a weekend where you put the higher boost levels in and you got to go. So what I would say is that when you look at the Fast 12, super proud that 9 of the top 12 are Chevrolets, representing 5 of our 6 teams. So we're excited about that and what that can mean for tomorrow and going on to the Indy 500. As I said, we're pushing as hard as we can, and we had about 5 plenum events in the 78, the 33, the 24, the 20, the 5, and the 17. What is that, 6, I guess? And so the good news is the engines, no harm to the engines. Engines are strong and great, so that's good. We do obviously have put those drivers, you know, at a deficit when they've been trying to make their fast 4 laps. So our team is going to work here overnight. We're running in dynos around the, you know, our dyno facilities around the world. We're going to be running overnight, and then we're working on ways to mitigate the issue and eliminate it, aero-proof it for tomorrow around controls and calibration. And obviously, there's some team strategy that will, as the ambient conditions are clear for tomorrow. I mean, we have the forecast, but as we get closer to it, there's some decisions they can make as well, and so we'll be working with them on that.
And so I understand and appreciate that Chevy did call a press conference on this. It's nice to have all of the information, all of the explanation. This is a sort of random event, but it's also related to pushing performance. And from my perspective, while I appreciate an explanation, I never want a manufacturer to apologize for blowing up engines or having engine failures or mechanical troubles. I don't think that reflects poorly on a brand, and I'm going to say that as a racing fan. I respect, appreciate, and understand that. I hope everyone viewing this video does too. There's nothing against Chevy and Honda when they have trouble. It's a sporting thing. It's, you know, they blow stuff up because they're trying, and I would much rather they try than not try at all. So let's take a look at the results of an absolutely unbelievable day here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the first day of qualifying. I guess we could call this bump day, but it kind of isn't, but it kind of is. We need to get the naming convention a little bit better. But let's take a look first at the runners who qualified into the Fast 12 shootout tomorrow. So as it stands provisionally, it's an all Penske front row with Will Power on top. And Will Power, I mean, I'm telling you, man, watching that qualifying run, the fact that he was running about 10 feet off the wall tells me that there's a lot more than a 233.74 lap average in it. Scott McLaughlin, who's looked good in qualifying trim, good in race trim, is second provisionally in the middle of the front row. Scotty Mack, really, really strong, I think, for the race. Joseph Newgarden, defending winner, on the outside. All 3 Penskes on the front row and above 233 miles an hour. The only other car with a 4-lap average of 233 miles an hour was the number 7 Arrow McLaren of Alexander Rossi. He is pretty clearly right now the only car that has a realistic shot of challenging the Penske front row lockout that may happen tomorrow. Kyle Kirkwood, the fastest Honda in the field. Something I want to say about Kirkwood is that if you think about Kirkwood last year and you eliminate the Ganassi team, which has clearly taken a step back, Kirkwood was the fastest Honda in the field last year on the outside of row 5, so he's stepped up his game significantly. 6th place, Kyle Larson, Arrow McLaren, the second fastest Arrow McLaren car provisionally in the field. Kyle's done a great job today. Certainly had a bit of adversity, but Larson overcame it. He's in his first Indianapolis 500 Fast 12. Felix Rosenquist, who had a great run in the heat of the day, 232.5. He put it in the barn after that. Santino Ferrucci, ditto. The AJ Foyt cars are not as fast as they were last year, but they're still in the field and solid. Takuma Sato, Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan getting into the Fast 12. Not quite relief for them because of what the situation with Graham Rahal, but it's great to see a Rahal car in. Pato O'Ward had a lot of trouble today, a plenum event. The speed didn't look like it was there, and then it was. 10th place for Pato O'Ward. Rinus VeeKay, the hero of today, after being the 0 of the day, crashing, finding the speed at the very last moment, and knocking his way into the Fast 12, 232.4. Ryan Hunter-Reay, what a great story. Dreyer and Reinbold Racing will get a shot at the pole position, 232.3 on the 4-lap average for Ryan Hunter-Reay. And now we get into the locked-in positions. These are the starting positions for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, of course, barring any shenanigans like we saw in the Monday practice last year. Colton Herta on the inside of row 5, starting in P13, 232 miles an hour there. Alex Palou, the highest qualified Chip Ganassi car in the field, 232 miles an hour as well. That's hard to believe. No Ganassi cars in the Fast 12. Callum Ilott, the only Aero McLaren not to get into the Fast 12. He's on the outside of that row. Row 6 on the inside, Marcus Armstrong, great qualifying effort for the rookie. Middle is Ed Carpenter, and again, the Ed Carpenter Racing Team, not exactly where we expected them to be. Kiffin Simpson definitely benefited from his third place qualifying draw. Only went out once, ran 231.9, put it in the barn. The rookie will start 18th. Row 7, Marco Andretti on the inside, the most experienced row in the field by far, by the way. Row 7, Elio Castroneves in the drive for 5. Thought he would be faster, but he wasn't, 231.8. And Scott Dixon, his worst qualifying effort ever at the Indianapolis 500, 21st starting position for the driver who's still looking for that second Indy 500 win. Row 8, there's a lot of hard luck stories, but I feel perhaps the worst for Agustin Canapino. He was easily in the Fast 12, one of the fastest runs we've seen all day, one of the most impressive runs all day, and he was rightfully frustrated with a 22nd place qualifying effort. That car has a ton more speed in it than it was able to show, or at least what the record will show. Stingray Robb in the middle for AJ Foyt Racing. My prediction of him in the Fast 12 wasn't quite right, but Stingray still solidly in the field after being in the back row shootout last year. Christian Rasmussen was another driver affected by the Plenum event. He could have gone much, much, much faster. Row 9, Tom Blomqvist in Elio Castroneves' race-winning car from 2021. On the inside of row 9 in P25, Romain Grosjean just didn't have the speed today, 26th. And Linus Lundqvist in a recovery in the car he crashed a couple of days ago, 27th. Row 10, Christian Lundgaard gets in the field, doesn't have to worry about the last row shootout. Connor Daly, another Plenum event for him. He was very, very upset about that 29th spot. Uphill battle for Connor, and then Pietro Fittipaldi in 30th. He's on the bump spot. He got in, last car locked into the field. And then the cars that will have to race their way in tomorrow. Marcus Ericsson, the 2022 Indianapolis 500 winner for Andretti Global. Catherine Legg, making her appearance this year in the bottom group. She just got in by the skin of her teeth last year for Dale Coyne Racing. Graham Rahal. It's unbelievable that it's happening again, but Graham Rahal is going to have to fight his way into the field with a 230.2 lap average. And of course, Nolan Siegel, the hard luck kid, he was over 228 on a couple of different runs today, but his 4-lap average that is at least official, although they throw out the lap, so is this not official? I don't know. 226.6 miles an hour was his qualifying effort earlier today. So still got a history segment coming, but I want to talk a little bit about today. And first of all, I want to shame Kyle, because you might remember from our coverage last year, I really brought the bad juju to Rahal. I talked about 93. We did all these history videos on them getting bumped. I purchased an RH1 cardboard standee, which is still in my house. I might bring it tomorrow, but Kyle decided he was going to wear a Rahal shirt. Get in here for a second. Move the credential. Get over here. My man's wore the 93, Bobby. Why would you do that?
I mean, it's a cool shirt. It looks cool. I actually did play myself because I just wanted a cool Bobby shirt, and then I realized it was the RH01. It's a championship shirt. I mean, it's cool. I bet going into 93, this was like really sick, but it turned out to be a little bit depressing, and it's coming back 30 years later being depressing.
Yeah, well, it was bad. All right, go back behind the camera, at least for now. We'll see more of Kyle later. And now, however, I do have an anecdote to that story that Kyle did buy the 94 diecast of Bobby Rahal. And Bobby Rahal, while he did struggle to get in the field in 94, did make it. So maybe Graham, that's some good juju for Graham. I think it is going to be a Penske front row. As much as I would like to think that Aero McLaren's got the speed, I think Penske has a little bit in their back pocket. And I just don't think that anyone's going to be able to eclipse them tomorrow. Great stories throughout the field, though. Great stories. And this is why we love the Indianapolis 500. Yeah, there were some procedural things like I didn't understand, and maybe there's going to be an explanation, but it seems like a huge loophole to me that Rinus VeeKay was able to get in the number 1 line, which you're supposed to be pulling your timeout for, and didn't have his time pulled out until the very last minute when he actually rolled out. I don't know why you're allowed to go in that line without pulling your timeout, because it kind of cost Marcus Ericsson an opportunity to make the field. And in the past, I mean, I've complained about this for several years at this point. In the past, times that were bumped from the field still remained in play in case someone withdrew an already qualified time and didn't requalify. Though that is no longer the case. I'm not really sure why it is no longer a rule. There's a lot of things that just we changed needlessly, rules and traditions that we changed needlessly about qualifying that I think would improve the show a little bit, improve the logic of how things flow a little bit better. But again, these are small complaints. Like, these are things that, most people it won't matter to. I'm sure it matters a little bit to the competitors, but and it matters to nerds like me. But I think Penske's going to be, if not on the pole and they're in the first 2 spots, I think they're going to be in the first 3 spots tomorrow. I think it's going to be the first time since 1988 that we see that. Definitely a good day for Penske today. Probably a good day for Penske tomorrow. And it certainly was a good day, really a good month, a good year for Penske in 1994. And that's what our history segment is on today. In 1993, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway changed forever with the removal of the apron, creating a much narrower groove which changed the dynamic of racing. Passing now happened on corner entry, not corner exit. The ability to pass a car on the 5/8 of a mile straightaways rather than the tight radius corners became critical to success. Despite winning the 1993 Indy 500 with Emerson Fittipaldi, Roger Penske explored the rulebook to find his patented unfair advantage. And he found it. For many years, the United States Auto Club, the governing body of the Indianapolis 500, had written special technical regulations to encourage less expensive production-based engines for smaller teams to be competitive. These engines were allowed slightly more turbocharger boost than the contemporary kart engines. Roberto Guerrero used this to great effect in 1992, taking the pole and the track record with a Buick stock block V6. USAC amended the rules to drop the requirement for these Indy special engines to be based on production engines, and Penske had his loophole. Developed in total secrecy, Penske and the company he partly owns, Ilmor Engineering, developed a 209 cubic inch turbocharged pushrod engine, which was capable of producing over 1,000 horsepower. The racing world was taken by total shock when the engine was unveiled to the public for the first time in April of 1994. Penske had sold the naming rights of his Ilmor to Mercedes-Benz, the first time that name had been seen at Indianapolis since the 1950s. 3 cars would be entered in 1994 for Emerson Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy, and newcomer to Penske, Al Unser Jr. When practice began in May, it was immediately apparent that the new Penske Mercedes was the car to beat. Fittipaldi practiced at over 230 miles an hour and had even been caught on the speed traps on the back straightaway, exceeding speeds of over 250 miles per hour. The speed was too much for Paul Tracy, who heavily crashed just before qualifying, dashing hopes of an all-Penske front row. Al Unser Jr. took the pole position, with Emerson Fittipaldi starting on the outside of the front row. In the race, any questions that remained about the Penskes were quickly answered. Unser and Fittipaldi ran away and hid. A mistake in the pits caused Little Al to relinquish the lead to Fittipaldi, who would put on one of the most dominant performances in 500 history, leading 145 laps and putting a full lap on the entire field, including Mercedes teammate Unser Jr. Little Al was able to unlap himself from Fittipaldi on lap 183, needing a splash of fuel to finish the race, and unsure of Unser's true position, Fittipaldi pushed too hard, crashing in turn 4 and throwing away a sure repeat victory. Unser Jr. inherited the lead and held off young rookie Jacques Villeneuve to take his second and final Indy 500 victory and prove the might of the 209 pushrod engine. That success, however, came at a great cost, and we will talk about that in more detail tomorrow. Stay tuned. I don't know what to call this day. Is it pole day? Is it bump day? It's kind of a little of both. And of course, tomorrow is a little bit of both. But we find out who's going to be on the pole position for the Indianapolis 500 tomorrow, who's going to be on the front row, and we're going to find out who is having a bad day on the outside looking in. I suspect it's going to be Nolan Siegel. I mean, putting a road course car into service like that is a really tall task. And I think that Charlie Kimball and Dale Coyne and Jack Harvey and all the folks over there coaching Nolan Siegel up have done everything they can do, and frankly Nolan has ever since the accident, but I think he's going to come up just a little bit short. But again, this is Indianapolis, there's magic here, there's always all sorts of stories that can happen, and we're expecting to see them for sure tomorrow. So it's going to be exciting. You guys know where to find the coverage. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you when we know all of the answers to the questions we have today.